What happens when Hollywood's biggest action star meets late-night television's most arrogant host? You're about to witness one of the most explosive celebrity confrontations ever caught on camera. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really triggered Arnold's rage. Now let's get into it. The Tonight Show studio buzzed with anticipation as Arnold Schwarzenegger made his way to the guest chair. The Austrian oak looked confident, wearing his signature leather jacket and that familiar champion smile. Jimmy Kimmel, however, had something different brewing behind his usual fake television grin. The audience applauded enthusiastically as Arnold settled into his seat, completely unaware of what was about to unfold. Arnold, Jimmy began, his voice carrying an edge that seasoned viewers might have recognized as trouble. You know, I've been thinking about your career lately, and I have to ask, do you ever look back and wonder if you peaked too early? The question hung in the air, like a loaded gun. Arnold's smile didn't waver, but those who knew him well would have caught the slight tightening around his eyes. Jimmy, my friend, I think you have it backwards. Some people peak, others build. Mountains that keep growing. Jimmy leaned forward, his elbows on his desk, fingers steepled. Mountains, huh? That's interesting because from where I'm sitting, it looks more like a landslide. I mean, let's be honest here. When was the last time you did something that actually mattered? And don't say politics, because we all know how that turned out. The studio audience grew uncomfortable. This wasn't the playful banter they expected. Arnold's jaw clenched, almost imperceptibly. You know, Jimmy, I came here tonight thinking we would have a good conversation. Maybe some laughs. But it seems like you have a different agenda. Oh, I definitely have an agenda, Jimmy shot back, his voice gaining momentum. My agenda is truth. My agenda is calling out has-beens who think they can coast on glory from 3 decades ago. Tell me, Arnold, what's it like being irrelevant? The words hit like a sledgehammer. Arnold's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his knuckles whitening. The audience gasped audibly. This was crossing every line of television etiquette, but Jimmy wasn't finished. You see, folks, Jimmy continued, turning to address the camera while keeping Arnold in his peripheral vision. This is what happens when someone gets too comfortable living in the past. They forget that the world moves on without them. They forget that muscles can't carry you forever, and neither can playing the same character in 10 different movies. Arnold's breathing deepened. His voice, when it came, was measured but carrying the weight of controlled fury. Jimmy, I have been in this business longer than you have been alive. I have built empires, served my adopted country, and inspired millions of people around the world. What have you done besides make jokes about other people's accomplishments? What have I done? Jimmy's laugh was sharp and mocking. I've stayed relevant, Arnold. I've evolved. I haven't tried to relive my glory days by making terrible sequels that nobody asked for. I haven't embarrassed myself by pretending I'm still the same guy who could barely speak English when he first arrived in America. The studio fell dead silent. Arnold's face darkened, and for a moment the Terminator wasn't acting. You want to talk about embarrassment, Jimmy? Let's talk about a man who makes his living by tearing down others because he has nothing of value to contribute himself. Let's talk about someone so insecure about his own mediocrity that he needs to attack legends to feel important. Jimmy's smugness faltered for just a second before returning full force. Legends? Is that what we're calling washed-up action stars now? Arnold, face it. You're a relic, a museum piece. The only reason you're on this show is because my producers felt sorry for you. That was the breaking point. Arnold's eyes flashed, with a fury that could have melted steel. He slowly rose from his chair, his massive frame casting a shadow over Jimmy's desk. The host suddenly looked very small, very vulnerable, and for the first time that evening, genuinely frightened. You know what your problem is, Jimmy? Arnold's voice was deadly quiet now, the calm before the storm. You mistake cruelty for comedy. You think because you have a platform, you have the right to destroy people for entertainment. But let me tell you something about respect, something your parents clearly never taught you. Jimmy tried to interject. Arnold, come on! It's just television. It's just jokes. But Arnold held up a hand that commanded absolute silence. No, Jimmy, this is not jokes. This is a man showing his true character on national television. This is a coward hiding behind a desk, thinking he's safe to say whatever he wants because he has security guards and cameras. But you know what? Those cameras are recording everything, including how pathetic you look right now. The tension in the studio was suffocating. Arnold stood towering over Jimmy's desk, his presence filling the entire space with an energy that made everyone hold their breath. Jimmy, despite his earlier bravado, was visibly sweating now, his cocky demeanor cracking like cheap paint. You want to know what real failure looks like, Jimmy? Arnold continued, his voice carrying the weight of decades of experience. Real failure is a man who peaked in his 20s, making prank calls and never grew beyond it. Real failure is someone who built a career on the backs of others, never creating anything original, never taking real risks, never standing for anything meaningful. Jimmy tried to regain control, forcing a nervous laugh. Arnold, you're taking this way too seriously. This is comedy, this is entertainment. The audience loves it when we roast our guests. The audience? Arnold turned to look at the crowd, who sat in stunned silence. Look at them, Jimmy. Do they look entertained? Do they look like they're having fun watching you humiliate someone? Who came here as your guest? Or do they look disgusted by what you've become? Indeed, the audience members looked uncomfortable, some shaking their heads, others looking away entirely. A few had their phones out, clearly recording what was becoming television history. Jimmy noticed this too, and panic began to creep into his voice. Okay, maybe I came on a little strong. But that's the format of the show, Arnold. You knew what you were signing up for when you agreed to come on. Arnold's laugh was deep and humorless. I signed up to promote my foundation, to talk about helping children and veterans. I signed up to have a conversation with a professional. What I got instead was an ambush by a bitter little man who thinks cruelty equals comedy. Jimmy's face reddened. The mask was completely off now. Bitter? You want to talk about bitter? You're the one who can't handle a few jokes about your failed political career, your terrible movies, your accent that sounds like a parody of itself. Face it, Arnold, you're a joke, and everyone knows it. The studio erupted in gasps. Even the band members looked shocked. Arnold's fists clenched at his sides, and for a moment it looked like the Terminator might actually terminate something. But instead, he did something far more devastating. He smiled. You know what, Jimmy? You just proved my point better than I ever could. You see, when someone attacks your work, your career, even your mistakes, that can be fair game. But when they attack who you are as a person, when they mock the way you speak, the country you came from, the struggles you overcame, that tells you everything you need to know about their character. Jimmy, sensing he was losing control of his own show, tried to pivot. Arnold, look, we can edit this out. We can start over. Let's just reset and do this properly. Edit it out? Arnold's voice rose with incredulous anger. You think you can just erase what you revealed about yourself tonight? You think you can take back showing your true colors to everyone watching? Jimmy, this is who you really are when the scripted jokes run out. This is what happens when you have to be genuine for 5 minutes, and you fail miserably. The host was floundering now, looking around desperately for help from his producers, his staff, anyone. But Arnold wasn't finished delivering his masterclass in dignity under fire. Let me tell you something about respect, Jimmy, since clearly nobody else has. When you invite someone into your house, you treat them with basic human decency. When someone trusts you enough to sit in that chair and be vulnerable with your audience, you don't reward that trust by trying to destroy them for your own entertainment. Jimmy's voice cracked as he tried one last desperate move. Arnold, you're being way too sensitive. This is just television. Nobody takes any of this seriously. Nobody takes it seriously? Arnold's voice thundered through the studio. Tell that to the young immigrants watching tonight who heard you mock someone's accent and wonder if that's how Americans really see them. Tell that to the people who look up to public figures and watch you demonstrate that success means you get to tear others down without consequence. The audience began to murmur among themselves. Some were nodding in agreement with Arnold's words. Others were pulling out their phones, clearly wanting to capture every moment of this incredible confrontation. Jimmy looked around frantically, realizing that his own audience was turning against him. You know what the real tragedy is here, Jimmy? Arnold continued, his voice now carrying a tone of disappointment rather than anger. You had a platform to inspire people, to bring joy into their lives, to be a positive force in the world. Instead, you chose to use it to feed your own ego by diminishing others. That's not comedy. That's not entertainment. That's just sad. Jimmy made one final attempt to salvage the situation. Arnold, please, let's just move on. We can talk about your charity work, your new projects, whatever you want to discuss. Arnold looked at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. Now you want to talk about my charity work. Now, after you've shown everyone exactly who you are, you want to pretend, to care about the causes I support? Jimmy, it's too late for that. The studio atmosphere had shifted completely. What started as Jimmy's ambush had transformed into Arnold's courtroom, and the host was being judged by his own audience. Arnold stood like a colossus, his moral authority filling every corner of the room, while Jimmy seemed to shrink further into his chair with each passing second. You want to know what separates real leaders from pretenders, Jimmy? Arnold's voice carried the wisdom of someone who had conquered multiple worlds. Real leaders build people up, even when they disagree with them. Real leaders understand that their platform comes with responsibility. But you use yours like a weapon against anyone who threatens your fragile ego. Jimmy's hands were trembling. Now, his usual smugness replaced by something approaching genuine fear. Arnold, I think you're overreacting. This is just how late-night television works. Everyone gets roasted. It's all in good fun. Good fun? Arnold's eyebrows raised in disbelief. Jimmy, you called me irrelevant, washed up, embarrassing, a joke. You mocked my accent, my heritage, my life's work. Then, when I respond with dignity, you call it overreacting. This is exactly the kind of gaslighting that bullies use when they get called out. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Some were recording with their phones, others just staring in amazement at witnessing television history unfold. Jimmy looked around desperately, but found no allies in the room he thought he controlled. Let me explain something to you about comedy, Jimmy, since you seem confused about the concept. Arnold continued, his voice steady and commanding. Real comedy punches up, not down. Real comedy finds humor in situations, not in destroying people's dignity. What you did tonight wasn't comedy, it was cruelty with a laugh track. Jimmy tried to interrupt. Arnold, please, can we just… But Arnold held up his hand with such authority that the host immediately fell silent. No, Jimmy, you had your time to talk. You used it to show everyone who you really are. Now it's my turn, and I'm going to show them who I am. Arnold's voice grew stronger, more resonant. I am someone who came to this country with nothing but dreams and determination. I am someone who worked every single day to earn everything I achieved. I am someone who used success as a platform to serve others, not to tear them down. The host's face was now completely red, sweat beading on his forehead. Arnold, look, maybe I went too far, but this is getting out of hand. Out of hand? Arnold's laugh was rich with irony. Jimmy, you invited me here to humiliate me on national television, and now that I'm defending myself with facts instead of rolling over like you expected, suddenly it's out of hand. You know what's really out of hand? A grown man who never learned. That respect is earned, not demanded. Jimmy made one last desperate attempt to regain control. You know what, Arnold? You can't handle the truth. You can't handle that your best days are behind you. You can't handle that nobody cares about your opinions anymore. The words hung in the air for a moment, and then Arnold did something unexpected. He smiled, a genuine smile that somehow made him look even more powerful than his anger had. You know what, Jimmy? You're absolutely right about one thing. I can't handle the truth. I can't handle the truth that there are people in this world who use their success to hurt others instead of help them. I can't handle the truth that someone would invite a guest onto their show just to abuse them for entertainment. I can't handle the truth that this is what passes for television in America today. Arnold began to remove his microphone, his movements deliberate and final. But here's a truth you need to handle, Jimmy. Respect isn't something you can take from someone. Dignity isn't something you can destroy with cheap shots and playground insults. Character isn't something that disappears when someone attacks it. It's something that gets revealed when you respond to those attacks. Jimmy was practically pleading now. Arnold, please don't do this. We can fix this. We can make this work. Arnold stood to his full height, his presence dominating the entire studio. Fix this? Jimmy, you can't fix character. You either have it or you don't. You can't fix integrity. You can't fix dignity. And you certainly can't fix the kind of person who thinks success gives them the right to be cruel. The Austrian oak began walking toward the exit, each step deliberate and powerful. Jimmy called after him desperately. Arnold, come on, don't be like this. It's just television. Arnold stopped and turned back one final time, his voice carrying across the stunned studio with perfect clarity. Jimmy, everything is just television to you. But to the rest of us, character matters. How we treat people matters. The example we set for others matters. Tonight, you showed everyone exactly what kind of example you want to set. With that, Arnold Schwarzenegger walked off the Jimmy Kimmel show, leaving behind a host whose credibility lay in ruins and an audience that had witnessed something they would never forget. The camera captured Jimmy sitting alone at his desk, looking smaller and more pathetic than anyone had ever seen him, while the man he tried to humiliate walked away with his dignity not just intact, but enhanced. The silence in the studio was deafening as Arnold disappeared through the exit, leaving Jimmy to face the judgment of his own audience and the cameras that had captured every moment of his complete moral collapse. That's the incredible story of what happened when Hollywood's biggest action star met late-night television's biggest bully. Make sure to subscribe if you want more stories like this, and comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Jimmy Kimmel ever recovered from this epic takedown, or was this the moment that exposed him for who he really is?